Taras Lyssenko?
Terrace.
Taras Lyssenko. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Also with him, Captain Ed Ellis. Taras is an expert at recovering aircraft lost in very deep water. I guess your phone has rung once or twice lately, or you've chatted with people about what's going on with the 777. And he has spent the last 25 years doing it, locating and recovering Navy airplanes from Lake Michigan. Joining us also in the studio, Captain Ed Ellis, Vice President of the Naval Aviation Museum Foundation in Pensacola, Florida. These guys are in town for a special 2-day symposium on aviation archaeology, which takes place this weekend at the Museum of Flight. You can link to all the information at bobrivers.com. We've got all the stuff to get you there. Taras Lyssenko and Captain Ed Ellis. Welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for having us.
And are you getting a lot of questions just because you're in a similar field to this strange mystery that's unfolding on the media?
Terrace probably is. Most of the aircraft that we recover are not anything that's flown in the last 70 years.
Right. But as far as locating aircraft, what technology do you use?
Well, we use advanced side scan sonar systems, which draws us a map of whatever's on the bottom.
Okay.
And that's.
And will that eventually be used?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Eventually be used.
But first they have to have some clue within 2,500 miles where it is.
Yeah, you have to know which ocean it's in, right?
Yeah, in order to recover these wrecks that we get out of Lake Michigan, Terrace basically mapped the lake bottom with
the
his
whole
sonar.
lake bottom of the lake.
Well, not
now.
the
Are you
whole
also great at finding the best fishing spots?
what we find is a lot of places where fish will hide.
No kidding. Yeah. And
Did you find Hoffa?
No, but we did find a guy that was on America's Most Wanted.
Lake Michigan. I mean, you got
we
some
did.
Tell me about
dumping.
Well, we actually, this planes disappearing is really not all that uncommon. Well, nowadays it's uncommon, but years ago it used to be quite common. There's a number of aircraft in Lake Michigan that they know just disappeared. We actually found one that disappeared in 1966 that was supposed to be over land, and we found it 20 miles out in Lake Michigan. But the America's Most Wanted case, the aircraft we found, and it's kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me of this case going on now. It was a insurance broker who was flying a small aircraft from Florida through Alabama to go take his 10-year-old daughter trick-or-treating, and he reported to air traffic control that he was having engine trouble. And they gave him, they knew what his position was, and they told him he had about 10 miles to go to the nearest airport, and he said, I won't make it. And there was a local guy in the area that reported to the FBI that he saw a small aircraft with its navigation lights flying the opposite direction when the plane supposedly crashed. So the reason he was on America's Most Wanted, he was up on charges of a few things, and so they believed this person. People, as my partner in the recovery business says, a lot of people like to get on the news by tooting their horn and making stuff up. So they launched a manhunt for the guy, and the FBI spent about 2 years looking into Bahamas, all kinds of places, because this one person said he saw this aircraft without its navigation lights flying away.
So, in other words, they believed that this guy was hiding. But he really wasn't hiding.
He wasn't hiding.
No,
yeah, and
you found him.
They actually hired.
He met a bad end. Did he have his daughter in the plane with him?
No,
that
he was
also
by himself.
A fake story. Right?
Yeah, the daughter. That was for real. He was very legit, and in the end, they proved that
he wasn't even a crook.
He wasn't really a crook. He just had made some accounting errors. Is really all he had done.
That happens to me every year. I mean,
they never believe you.
I know the feeling. The IRS, yeah.
Terrace is on a first-name basis with half the IRS investigators in Chicago.
Right, because when people go missing, people who have planes generally have a little bit of money. A lot of them own big businesses, right? And sometimes they're not found.
Yeah, sometimes they're not found. And then it's interesting. It's this case with this 777 is every expert under the sun comes out. The insurance companies, the guy had millions and millions of dollars of life insurance because he was a big insurance broker. He practiced what he preached. The insurance companies didn't want to pay out the life insurance.
Of course.
So they were able to get people that supposedly do what I do, to go to the lake and then testify that the airplane wasn't in the lake.
There.
It wasn't there.
Expert witness. Have you ever been an expert witness?
Yes, I have. I've
All right.
been
and
an
it's-
expert.
and you're in it for the cash, right?
Well, no, when I was an expert witness, I was testifying that you can't find something that's not there, and you can't find something if you don't
You can't
look.
prove a negative.
Yeah, and you can't find it if you don't look.
Who's the richest person whose plane you ever searched for?
Oh, I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that. I wouldn't know that one. That's an odd one. I wouldn't know. So
But
well, I'd say, well, you know,
the famous then
the
would
U.S.
be
the U.S. Navy would say they are. We
the
search
Navy
Yeah.
is pretty
They
rich.
got a lot of money. They spend
Government.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of your money. I try not to give them my money. I don't want them.
And that's what
spending
I
my
was
money.
kind of wondering about because with military aircraft, I know they go down quite frequently, and especially in battle or it's a terrible thing. We've never had an air war over the United States. How are so many aircraft in Lake Michigan?
Well,
Is this
let me-
bad driving?
Oh yeah,
Is
Ed, you tell them that story.
Yeah. Ed, this is going to be a little about weather, right?
A
No.
little bit about weather, but basically during World War II at the beginning, the Navy didn't have enough aircraft carriers to train their pilots. And if you train them off the East Coast or the West Coast, on carriers, the Japanese submarines had a crack at them, and it required an entire battle group to protect them. So a Navy commander up in Chicago came up with the idea that
You can take it.
You have a great ring, by
yeah,
the way.
came
He
came
starts
up,
talking about Navy secrets. They call him right away. See that? Notice that?
came up with the idea of cutting the top deck off these two passenger steamers, the C and B and the Greater Buffalo, and they put a 550-foot flight deck on top of them, and they were side paddle wheel coal-fired aircraft carriers. And they wound up training over 17,000 Navy pilots to land
So
on.
there's lots of training going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all day long, all every day, all year long.
And now, what about
Snow,
the
ice.
lake effect, snow, and all of those weather conditions I hear about over there? Is that part of where they would get into problems
Yeah.
and you'd lose some?
What would happen, of course, was they put about 140 aircraft in the water. A lot of them were war-weary airplanes that had been shot up in battle, repaired, put in the training command. And they lost about 10 pilots in the course of the training those 17,000. And they lost most of them in the winter due to weather. They went into the water too far from the ship for the crash boats to get to them before they froze to death because we didn't have helicopters in.
Oh.
And so the fatalities that they have were primarily due to exposure in the winter.
And you say because the training planes are the beat-up planes left over from a war, that it's better today, right?
Oh, much better
Yeah,
today.
I was going to say.
We have an entire different class of aircraft that they train in. And Terrace has recovered a couple of aircraft for us that are one of a kind. We got a pre-World War II Vindicator out of Lake Michigan that's the only one in the world on display. The most recent, next to the most recent that he pulled out is one that's a Hellcat. And Jack Taylor of Enterprise Rent-A-Car flew Hellcats during World War II off the USS Enterprise, and that's the way Enterprise Rent-A-Car got its name. But Jack's son Andy paid for the recovery and restoration of this Hellcat in his dad's honor, and it's
how much restoration does it take? Are these things covered in barnacles, or are they pretty well preserved down there?
There's no barnacles. It's freshwater.
Freshwater.
It's freshwater, John.
But we do have an environmental species that causes a problem. They used to be zebra mussels. Now they have this thing called guaga mussels, and you're probably starting to see them maybe even in Lake Washington. They're nasty, and they're doing a lot of damage to the aircraft.
Are there whole aircrafts? I mean, when
Oh,
a plane
yeah.
goes down in a water, I imagine you got to put pieces back together.
No.
Really?
It was on most of the crashes were on takeoff and landing, so they were pretty good ditches. So they're whole aircraft.
They ditched hoping to be rescued,
That's
usually,
correct.
right? And
Wow.
sadly, in the frigid waters, too far away for rescue to come quick enough.
yeah. If they had an engine problem 10 or 15 miles from the ship and had to ditch, the crash boats could do about 15 knots, take them an hour to get there, and the guys were frozen.
And here we are in Seattle, a big aviation community. And pilots are fascinated with ditching. I know I am, and I would love to see this. If they come this weekend to the Aviation Archaeology Symposium, Saturday and Sunday, when are you guys speaking and what will they see?
We have Saturday afternoon.
Saturday afternoon, okay.
Yeah, we have the whole Saturday afternoon from the schedule, right? And so they can get a real in-depth. We'll tell them all about it.
And do you have a plane on display there, or just pictures?
we don't. It's they should.
Your planes are all over museums.
They're
right?
everywhere. They're all everywhere. I don't think we
Can
have.
I get one for like a lawn ornament in my front yard?
We did that on my hobby farm last summer. We actually did that, right?
Who owns the plane when you bring it up? Your recovery company owns it, right?
No, the Navy.
Oh, the Navy. Oh, really?
And the rules
that
of
doesn't seem
salvage.
fair.
No, the rules of salvage never said you own it. The rules of salvage says the person who owns it's got to compensate you. That's a big misconception.
How much does the Navy give you?
Not enough. Never enough.
Well,
but you
That's
you
'cause
mentioned.
you won't give them any tax money.
It's it's a vicious circle.
But you love doing it. That's why you do it.
You mentioned about here. This is a Boeing town. One of the types of aircraft we have a lot of in Lake Michigan is called an SBD Dauntless dive bomber, which was made by Douglas, and Douglas became part of Boeing. So the Museum of Flight should have one of the aircraft we recover from the lake, which should be an SBD, or we should actually, the Boeing, Boeing should fund it.
Yeah.
Just in case they're listening.
Well, one of the things that when Tara says the Navy pays for it, the Navy doesn't pay a nickel to get these airplanes. Our foundation funds the recovery and restoration of these aircraft, and we've put about close to $100 million over the years into our museum and aircraft recovery and restoration.
By the way, Captain Ed, you have the smoothest voice. I would love to have you talk to me on a jet in the middle of turbulence.